Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking us on out. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. Please subscribe to the channel if you guys could. Hit that like button. Hit some comments, but, don't be rude. And if you guys want to, also subscribe to the WQM YouTube page. You guys can watch Tobin and Leroy every single weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Interact live with the show there. And lots of shenanigans that we get into there. I nearly had Leroy rage quit today. So the ESPN Top 100 is out. I like ESPN. I like power rankings. I'm a big fan of power rankings. I'm a fan of lists. We talked about one earlier in the year. CBS had Tyler Hero ranked 87th in the league, a list that he posted on his Instagram account and took exception to. And this one, I'm not going to do a Tyler Hero debate. I'm not going to do a Jaime Jaquez debate. Those guys also appeared on the list. Jaquez is at 86. Tyler Hero is at 76. One guy's going into his second year. The other, I think, does have a ton to prove. But I do want to talk about the positions of the other two players that are on the Miami Heat's roster that made the top 100. And that is, of course, their two stars, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. So the list today that got unveiled is 50 through 11. And here is your top 30, because we're going to get to Jimmy Butler in a minute. He comes up on the list first. And Jimmy is listed on this list at number 28. So at 30, you have Karl Anthony Towns. You have Domantas Sabonis at 29. Both of these guys, by the way, dropped. So I think everybody dropping kind of lets you know that they feel very good about the talents around the league and where things are going, especially with who they have ranked all the way at 11th, which I want to get to in a little bit too, because we just saw this guy last night. But Jimmy Butler's ranked 28th. Here's what ESPN writes. This is from Bobby Marks. Butler continues to play at an all-star pace. Last season, he was one of 8 players to average 20 points with 40% on three-pointers and 85% at free throws. The 16-spot drop and concerns moving forward, however, are a result of Butler's age. And more importantly, his availability. Butler turned 35 in September. He has failed to play more than 65 games in each of the past 4 seasons. Saw his field goal percentage drop from 54% to 50% last season, largely because of his struggles finishing near the rim. Okay. That is from Bobby Marks. I will say, Bobby has been on this with the whole Jimmy Butler finishing around the rim. It is definitely the most interesting thing, I think, to watch for with Jimmy Butler. Getting to the free throw line is one of his superpowers. He does not really do it in a flopping fashion. The NBA did put a clamp on foul calls last year, and he's a guy who does throw his body into it and takes a toll on it. So in age concerns, forget about durability, forget about games played for a second, because I keep saying this, I expect Jimmy Butler to be more around the 64, 65 range. I don't expect this gigantic, he's going to play 70 games, unless that's just the point. And we're going to do like D-Wade's last season with Miami before he went to the Bulls. But more so than the availability is the physical toll the game has taken on his body. He's built like Jimmy does physically look still very imposing and does like to play that style. You saw last night how giddy he was. He was like a show pony galloping up and down the court because he was so excited to have a little chirp match with Chris Paul. So they dropped him 16 spots though for missing games. And I guess it must be one of the big things, because here at 27, who's above Jimmy Butler, is Zion Williamson, who of course did have a very, very healthy year last year by his standards. He did end up getting hurt in the playoffs anyway. But he went up 30 spots for them. Zion Williamson ranked above Jimmy Butler. De'Aaron Fox ranked above Jimmy Butler. Kyrie Irving went to the finals last year. I can get with him getting a 10-spot bump. Would I rather have Kyrie Irving to lead my team as a 1 than Jimmy Butler? Absolutely not. That's a ridiculous argument. De'Aaron Fox, he is very, very talented. Is he better than Jimmy Butler? That's a quibble and one with me. Zion Williamson's obviously a freak, but also has his own durability issues. So, like, if you just get the pass for last year, but over his career, nowhere near as durable as Jimmy Butler is. So 27, 26, 25. I'm not taking any of these guys before I'm taking Jimmy Butler. 24, Paolo Banchero's kind of in a different class. He got up 4 spots. I think it's a deserved, fair rise for him. He's an absolute moose. 3rd year. You're talking about one of the probably better building blocks around the league. I don't have a problem with his rise so much. Jimmy's still, to me, a better all-around player, more credentialed player. But I have less of a problem with him than I do the other guys. 23, Damian Lillard. So this is what they write. Lillard has acknowledged that his first season in Milwaukee was not an easy transition. After 11 seasons in Portland, he was traded on the eve of training camp, never got his footing. Averaged 24 points, 7 assists, which earned a starting spot in the All-Star game. Had some bright moments in Milwaukee, but he was far from the dominant force, and he struggled to find chemistry alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. Dude, you can't have Damian Lillard on a ranking list above Jimmy Butler. Like, nobody on this list is getting punished more for their availability than Jimmy Butler. 16 spots he's dropping from this list, and Damian Lillard dropped 9. He was 14 last year on here. You can't tell me that Damian Lillard shouldn't have a more substantial drop than Jimmy Butler just because he had a trouble finding his footing. That's asinine to me. The next guy's Kawhi Leonard, who suffered no real movement. He was 24 last year. He's 22 this year. I mean, if we're going to say Jimmy Butler's big drop and this is about durability, Kawhi Leonard is the argument above him. Paul George is then above him. A year younger than Jimmy Butler, already has a hyperextended knee. So I think Kawhi Leonard, if healthy, is a better player than Jimmy Butler and deserves to be ranked above Jimmy Butler. Paul George, I'm not there with him, dude. Sorry. I'm not. But Kawhi Leonard being healthy is way more of a roll of the dice than Jimmy Butler is. And Paul George is also a roll of the dice. 20 is Ja Morant. He's up from 35, but he only played 9 games last year. So obviously durability really concerning here. MVP candidate, moving up. Ja's super talented. They have Tyrese Maxey inside the top 20. He's at 19. He's going to be anchored by Joel, and he's going to be anchored by old Bone Bruise there. He was great last year. Probably deserves to take a big leap in this list. It's interesting to know, like, where does he fall in the pecking order of that team, because that seems to always be the issue with Philadelphia of, like, where somebody's supposed to be in that. But I don't think Tyrese. I don't have as big a problem with Tyrese Maxey being above Jimmy as I do other guys on this list, like PG, like Damian Lillard, like Kyrie Irving, like De'Aaron Fox, and like Zion Williamson. So there's that. Then we get to the second Heat player on this list, and that is Bam Adebayo, who dropped 2 spots on this list. It looks like the big reason for that is, let's see, who leaped him? All right. Last year, Bam was 16. Jaylen Brown leapt him. Won a championship on a list. I'm okay with that. Halliburton jumped him. So that kind of explains why Bam fell 2 spots. Expect Adebayo to be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Adebayo is one of 7 players to defend at least 175 shots in the half-court. Matchups against guards, forwards, and centers held opponents to 48 effective field goal percentage. You guys aren't going to list. I mean, who cares? Which ranked him on the top players to contest at least 800 shots according to Second Spectrum. The Heat ranked second in defensive efficiency this season with Adebayo on the court. Yeah, but you guys aren't going to do that. You're going to go by like 4 Twitter blocks by Victor Wembanyama and give him the award. Like, we already know how the award's going to go. It's funny how this thing's already ranked. And we were talking about this a little bit on the radio show today because Wemby was in town against Miami. And mind you, I don't want to hate on Victor Wembanyama. He was sensational to see in person. It was cool. It was honestly more fun watching the Heat try to get around him than it was watching him on offense. But Bam very much took that matchup personally. And so I'll just get to the big headline here in just a second because there are other guys on this list. But I have more issue with Jimmy. I think Jimmy's still a top 20 player in the league. I think him fringing on a top 30 player is pretty crazy. Donovan Mitchell, all right, dude. The guys that they got, here's your the 11. They got Jalen Brunson at 12, Anthony Davis at 13, Jaylen Brown at 14, Devin Booker at 15, Tyrese Halliburton, at 16, Spida at 17, Bam at 18, and Tyrese Maxey is 19. So watching, but number 11 is the crazy one because he jumped, I think, more than anybody on the list, and that was Victor Wembanyama. They have Victor Wembanyama already as a fringe top 10 player in the league, which is, man, I feel like they're really, they're really, really, really stacking the expectations on this kid. Like really, really stacking the expectations on this kid. I don't think that's a very good team that they have. He's very good and he's very talented and he is impressive to see. But I feel like if you're going to be a fringe top 10 player, then you got to carry your team to the playoffs. And I just think that's a big ask of the young fella, especially because I don't think there's so much about, are they going to give him the ball inside and they have the right guys? They got Chris Paul. Okay, he's 100 years old. Is that hamstring going to hold up? Does everybody else on the same method with that? I just think it's a big ask, personally. But the funny thing about the Victor Wembanyama thing is, like, Bam yesterday took this matchup very, very personally, just like he did with Triple J last year, because Triple J won depoy on a year where blocks became important all of a sudden. And he was talking about this a little bit. I saw some quotes floating around with him talking to Jeremy Taché from Bally, and that, that the goalposts always move for him, and that the media is like, they're just going to go with blocks and steals and all that type of stuff. Although, Miami's had a big emphasis on stealing the basketball in this postseason, which they should. I mean, they have Jimmy Butler, who's one of the best at it in the league. Tyler Hero, we were wondering today, like, what's his over-under number going to be? Because I think as high as 50. Could he be in the 70s range this year? Could he up it to that type of average? Should he be healthy? But I just think that's a big jump on Wembanyama, man. I think that's a big ask for the young fella. I like his mentality. He seems like a very confident, almost bordering on cocky individual when you read some of the quotes that he has at the age that he has, and I don't know. I just think you're saying the guy is going to be amongst the best players in the league already in year 2. That's a big one for me, man. That seems a bit high, but that explains the drop for Bam a little bit. Anthony Davis dropped 3 spots. Jalen Brunson went all the way up 20 spots. That everybody's in love. There's no overrated like New York Knicks overrated. You're going to skyrocket up the charts. Devin Booker fell down to 14. Halliburton went up 5. But, like, I'm just saying, man, like, in a playoff series, like Jalen Brunson, Jimmy Butler, I'm still taking Jimmy Butler. They have had a showdown in a series before. You want to go off of last year? Okay. Jimmy Butler had his MCL explode. But, he beat that Knicks team with Jalen Brunson as the star on one leg, basically. It was Josh Hart annoys me. The interesting thing, too, is this, I do find from the rankings, everybody does still have a lot of love for Bam Adebayo because, being a top 20 to 15 player in the league or right outside the top 15, wherever you want to put him, because he is in the prime of his career. Yeah, it is going to be a wonder. Is this going to be the year where Bam is really going to be the biggest needle mover. It's the most fascinating thing to look at with the Miami Heat this year, and we've all been waiting for it. It definitely feels like with Eric Spoelstra, the understanding of the team, it's definitely felt more Bam, and it does feel like Jimmy, and this is, mind you, preseason, they're getting little quarter runs, and it's hard to know, but it does feel like Jimmy's kind of just like finding the spots every once in a while, but is not trying to take over by any means. And I think Tyler is doing a lot of that too. You know, Tyler's trying to make everybody comfortable, and he's putting up a lot of threes, and I think that's what they want. I was talking about this a little bit last night, but if you guys missed it, the second unit, I think, is really, really interesting from the Duncan and Jaime perspective. Curious to see how the rest of their roster really rounds out. What's Pella's leap look like? When do they really go to Kalel? Is he going to be in the doghouse? What is Alec Burks and all this? And then the one thing I was wondering watching that unit last night, because there's such an emphasis on the defense in the first unit, it's a second unit that doesn't really have a stopper if you don't play Haywood Highsmith. And I know all these guys are going to be staggered in different spots. It's not going to be a straight up 5-5 like it is right now. But that was the other thing that stood out to me. Offensively, it looked great. Defensively, questions there for sure. So right now, the league and this ESPN list is having Jimmy Butler as a fringe top 30 guy because of durability, but they will vault guys like Zion Williamson, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They'll have Anthony Davis way above him. So we'll see. We'll see what that all turns into by the end of the year. If they'll, as the kids say, keep that same energy. If he does have a durable season, and he is there. To Bobby's part about, the finishing at the rim, yeah, I think that's the one interesting thing that's not just, you got to be out there on the floor. Is there going to be a continuous decline here? Or was that just maybe run down, couldn't get his body right last year, didn't have that same mentality? Because I don't think 35 is ancient. And especially Jimmy's size. Like Jimmy is not, if Jimmy was a 6'3" guard who built completely on explosiveness, I'd be more worried about it like now. I'd be more worried about that for like when it was D Wade's time, because that was, D Wade's game. I feel like Jimmy can kind of hold the fort there a little bit more, just because, he is 6'7", 6'8", 6'6", 6'7", built like a brick house. And also can be, we know what kind of a value he is defensively. But man, I mean, you want to talk about guys they could not wait to get out of the top of the top in these rankings. They did that to old Jimmy. They did that. So now he could not care about this less. I know there's not a person on earth that probably cares about ESPN's power ranking less than Jimmy Butler. But man, I find that to be. I found that to be a little bit disrespectful on that number, just over some missed games. I'll end it like this. Okay. Ultimately, you do need to be a guy who can lead your team in a playoff series too, right? And Donovan Mitchell hasn't really been able to do that for a while. Tyrese Maxey, he can be a piece. Can he be the guy, the needle mover, right? Like if the needle mover on your team. John Morant, okay, I'll give John Morant. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard has the hardware to prove it, but it's been a while. Can we acknowledge it's been a while? Damian Lillard has some iconic playoff shots, but he hasn't gotten further than the conference finals before. Paolo Banchero's a baby. Kyrie Irving is the ultimate Robin. De'Aaron Fox, nice story, not there. Zion Williamson hasn't been healthy for a playoff run. Tyrese Maxey, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, a little banged up. I'll give you Maxey. I'll give it to you, begrudgingly. Because it wasn't really a tit for tat. Like, I think if you put it like this, if you were the Boston Celtics right now and you were like, who are the guys you actually don't want to go up against in a playoff series? Is Jimmy Butler not number one on that list for them? More than Luka, more than Joker, more than LeBron, more than Giannis Antetokounmpo, more than Joel Embiid. If you really ask Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and and Missoula, like, who do they really are like, that's who we got to face? Was not the biggest sigh of relief that Jimmy Butler was not in that series with the Miami Heat? Even if you don't think they were going to win, you know that Jimmy Butler, as mad as Pat Riley was about his comments and as mad as, I guess, or as annoyed as Heat fans got by it, the one thing you can't say Jimmy Butler's wrong, that he can't be proven wrong, which I think is the annoying thing about it. Maybe it would have been the truth because that team wasn't set up for success, and they did still have other injuries like no Duncan, no Tyler, no Terry, Tyler just coming back. But man, that guy is the numero uno pain in the ass of the best team in the league, and that's the facts about it. And if that is barely a top 30 player in ESPN's mind, then I guess it's barely a top 30 player in ESPN's mind. But what are we doing these things over? Like Twitter highlights? Because that's what it seems like. Even yesterday, like with the Wembanyama thing, right? I'm watching SportsCenter today, and what are they showing? They're showing the Wemby assist more so than the Terry Rozier to Bam Adebayo. And I'm like, well, hold on. Bam Adebayo is a top 20 player by your rankings. Did you guys show him cook Wembanyama at all? No? You just ignore that? Okay. Good talk.